Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
Thank you.
With your permission, I'm going to introduce the rest of the team we have. Yahal Zilka, founder and co-chairman of Magma Ventures, with, I think, about 16 years in this business. Nir Erez, CEO and co-founder of Moveit, serial entrepreneur for many years. And another Nir Sasson, co-founder and CDO of Autotox. With your permission, maybe the last two, just give us, quick words about what your company is doing.
So I believe at least part of you guys arrived here by public transit. I can almost sure that you used Moveit this morning. So Moveit is a public transit app that operates today. We're like 3.5 years old. We operate today in 800 cities, 65 countries, and we have more than 30 million users right now, and we're growing in about 2.5 million users every month now.
So us at Autotalks, what we're doing is providing the chips that allows actually the car to talk and to listen to the surrounding. And with this, actually, you can really learn about your future. Basically, you can get information like another car which is about to crash into you and you actually cannot see that. Or how many times you drove towards the traffic light trying to guess, should I speed up or slow down? By connecting to the surrounding in real time, actually, this is the information that you will get. You'll get safety, you'll get mobility.
And we're just have the opportunity of working with these guys and are fortunate to work with them and the other guys and supporting them.
Yeah, I want to throw the first question to you. You've been in this business for, what, 16 years already? Tell us.
Enjoying every moment.
Great. Can you tell us a little bit, tell the secretary a bit, what's going on here? Why suddenly the automotive industry is so successful here? What's happening?
So I think, thanks for this question. I think Wendy did a very, very good job in giving a high-level overview of the ecosystem here in Israel and some of the drivers that are making this happen. There was one slide there that on one hand is amazing, but on the other hand, it's sort of not telling the full picture, and that had to do with innovation. Now that slide showed Israel as number 3 or 4 in innovation. Finland is, but the real thing is, I think that what you really have to look at is deeper into innovation. And what do I mean by that? There is a big difference between what we do is intellectual property, but within intellectual property, there is what I call incremental innovation and disruptive innovation. And disruption is the key word here. So in essence, there are only 2 places in the world that on a continuous basis, on a repeatable basis, disruptive innovation is happening in multiple areas. And clearly, by far number 1 is the Bay Area, the US, California. By the way, we're a very, very distant second, so let's put things in perspective. But what is happening here is really the disruption. And let's define what disruption is. Disruption, in my opinion, in my book, is at least a 10, 20x on a cost-performance basis of what exists today, coming in with a new business model or a new technology, or a totally different, something that could not be done before, a paradigm shift. Now, when you look at that, you really have to look at the areas that Israel excels at, and there are several silos. And business or technology areas that Israel may not be number 2. It may be as good as the US and maybe sometimes better. And let's look at those. I've identified at least 6 areas that the Israeli technology is very, very advanced. The first and foremost, and we've seen Argus, another one of our portfolio companies is cybersecurity. Cybersecurity, because of necessity in here, is number one. Number two, big data. Number three, storage. You've seen some aspects of storage here. But there are two other areas that Israel is a global leader. One is in semiconductors, and has been. It's declining like it's declining in the US, but Israel still is a good example is Mobileye, Autotalks here, Valence, and others. But the last thing here that really drives, and it's very important to the automotive and the transportation industry, is computer vision. Israel is a global leader in computer vision. And listen to this, 4 out of the top 10 faculties in computer vision are based here in Israel. This is part of the answer. Of course, there's many others.
Thank you. Mr. Secretary, I know you mentioned yesterday night your reports, I think it's called Beyond Traffic, right? Can you tell us a little bit what is your vision, what is your conclusions out of this report?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you so much for being such a great host, and Wendy and everyone here. It's been a great couple of days. We started in my tenure at USDOT with a question, which is, why is it that in a country that has such a mature highway system, rail system, aging transit systems, can we not figure out the path forward with a growing population and increased pressure on our systems because of freight and other needs? And so we started with an academic exercise almost by looking at the trends facing American transportation over the next 70 years. And in essence, we boiled down the trends to 5. The fact that our population is changing the way it moves. It's moving into more urban areas. That's putting more pressure on legacy transportation systems and necessitating a more multimodal approach. Second, how freight is moving. Not only the need for conventional logistics like deepening ports, creating last mile connections, strengthening our ability to move double stack containers from one end of the country to the other, but also unconventional new technologies, things like unmanned aircraft and other things that are becoming part of the conversation when it comes to moving goods. Third, climate. Climate is a big issue in the US. Our president is, I think, going to be seen by history as a game-changing president when it comes to climate. But it is clear that through Hurricane Sandy and Hurricane Katrina, that we're going to have to build to a higher level of resilience, and that has implications in transportation. Last 2 points are technology and the role technology is going to play. Things like what Autotalks is doing, going to make a huge difference in terms of safety. We estimate 80%, as much as 80% decrease in fatalities as a result of having connected technologies. And then finally, the way that the U.S. distributes resources and governs its transportation system is highly stovepiped. We have a federally controlled air traffic control system, locally controlled transit systems, state-controlled highway systems, privately controlled freight rail systems, and it makes it very difficult to make all of those things work well together and to make decisions at the national level. And so we have plans to speed up our ability to do that.
Thank you. It was mentioned earlier the fact that you are a big fan of data.
Yes.
So I want to ask the data guy here, Nir, from MoveIt. Understood you guys collect more data now than Google on public transportation. Is that right?
It's right from 2 different aspects. So the first very interesting piece of information that not too many people know is that the public transit data or data layer does not exist as a full coverage of the world. And when we started 3.5 years ago, we were like 10 people with $3 million, and we thought that buying Google is probably going to be a little bit problematic, so we had to build the data ourselves. And in 3.5 years, we are now have 50% more data than Google Maps regarding public transit data layer around the world. The way we do it, by the way, is by having an active community around the world who actually use our tools and helping us building this data. So out of 700,000 volunteers, we qualified 21,000 editors that are actually continuously working on the data. And by the way, we release a service in a new city every 24 hours. So just last week, we released Knoxville, Tennessee, which is a small city, but the data were not exist even for the public transit.
I want to ask you another following question. How are you going to help the government build better transportation
that's the
system
second
using
part.
that
So
data?
the users that are using MoveIt on a daily basis today generate for us currently about 100 million data points a day. And it accumulates to about 3 billion data points a month, and do the math. We use this data currently for ourselves and returning it to the users by calculating statistics. If you think about it, it's the holy grail of Ministry of Transports or operators around the world.
So are you actually going to give this to the government?
So we already started to give statistical data to governments or operators around the world. For example, in Rome, we're doing it already. We're doing it right now in Brazil. We're going to be the official app for Rio de Janeiro Olympic Games, so they're going to get all this information and bring it back to the public. The thing is, as a startup, we have such a short attention span. So if we need to start dealing with the governments right now, it's a black hole. They can suck us in with all the resources, but we're definitely building this database for future use where you can see the swarm moving every morning from the suburbs to the center of cities. So it's not only where they are right now, we know where they're going to be in 20 minutes. So think about the implications of what you can do with this.
Mr. Secretary, I know you mentioned a little bit about connectivity. And at the DOT, I think you have a major plan that you want to enroll with regards to regulation on that. Can you just elaborate a bit more about it?
So in the U.S., we are working on a vehicle-to-vehicle rulemaking that will basically lay the foundation for connected vehicles in the U.S., requiring it in all new vehicles. And we've been asked actually by industry to do this. It's unusual for industry to ask for regulation, but they want it because they want to know how to build to the standards that we're going to expect so that they don't have to come in and keep getting trial tested as the technology rolls out.
May I follow on that? What are we doing on aftermarket, to accelerate this? Getting into a new vehicle is maybe a 5 or 7 year process. How about the government taking an initiative of
Aftermarket, you mean?
Aftermarket type of on vehicle to vehicle.
So it's an interesting question and one that that our rulemaking may or may not address. I think it's still in the discovery phase, if you will, in terms of how we do it. But frankly, I would expect that our rulemaking will set it up a framework that will make it easy for the market to provide those aftermarket opportunities.
I want to ask
What about incentives?
Let me please manage this. I want to ask Neil Sassone, are you ready? Let's say tomorrow you have the right regulation in place. Are you ready to implement your service all around the
Yes, we're ready,
countries?
and with the timeline that is expected, and my belief is that regarding of what they say, all car makers can be ready by 2020. All of them.
What about
Some
security?
of them can be even earlier than that.
What about security? There's a big issue of security. I just heard about from Argos. It's also an issue here, right?
Actually, this was a very important question that you've asked Argos, because if there is one thing that I'm still concerned, and I think that this is where the government can do a lot, is that the understanding that security cannot and should not be compromised on the basic level. You should trust any message that you get, because this message can be hacked, and you should think about the attack surface from that. So I think that this approach of no compromise should be taken not just by OEMs, the car makers, but also by government. And I think that today there's no need to compromise, because with the integrated security that we have inside on the basic level and the accelerators that we have inside, actually it burns almost no power, and it's a very high performing. It takes a look at all messages and at no additional cost. So there's no need to compromise anymore, but this should be pushed by the car makers and into the car makers by the government, saying no compromise at all.
Well, I think this is a really important point, because the message that the auto industry needs to hear is that this issue of cybersecurity is not a static issue. It's not one where you can put a system in place and then relax for the next 5 years. It's something of constant, continuous improvement. And we need the OEMs as well as their supply chain to be very focused on this at every level, because if we're going to go to this connected technology, we do need to make sure it's safe.
If I may comment about that, I think this is a very important issue. The second to what I was saying is what I would call agility. I think that in your statement with regard to what you expect to see from security is you want to see security for decades, because with sustainable security you'll get sustainable safety. And the way to do that is there's only one way to do that without having a huge cost of repairs and recalls, is to make sure that the security level has these headrooms. First one, as a first thing, and the second thing, the ability to upgrade that in the field. And that is a solved problem already. We've done it, and it's ready.
Okay. The next phase is probably connected car, as autonomous driving. And I actually want to ask Anir from Movit. I know you started to do some kind of activity with other, I would say, not a normal public transportation type of businesses. What is it?
So we usually, when you talk about multimodal transportation, people talks about combining buses and trains into a multimodal trip. At Movit right now, we're already 3 months into what we call an omni-search, or a multimodal that includes alternative means of transportation. So for people who do not use their own car, I mean, the alternatives can be take a taxi to the next train station and then go to the train station. If you are in Palo Alto, you want to go to San Francisco, Uber costs about $80, but you can take Uber to the Caltrain, then take the train and another Lyft car waiting for you at San Francisco AT&T Park. So we have added multimodal triplet that includes alternative means of transportation, including Get Taxi, Easy Taxi, Uber now in New York and Rome. And the next step is Drive Now of BMW, one of our investors, which is a car sharing system. So you can actually check your alternatives. So the purpose is that the OmniSearch will allow you every morning to check your alternatives. And if you are price sensitive or you are time sensitive, you can make your own decision about what you want to do. And it's also about combining all these means of transportation, including, by the way, peer-to-peer carpooling.
Interesting. Yeah, there's always the story of ways that people are interesting to hear. Can you tell us a little bit about, because I'm sure that when you first invested in Way, you had no idea what this is going to happen, what's going to take place out of there.
Well, we had some idea, and you all are familiar with Waze today in terms of the multiple of features that it has, whether it's mapping, whether it's navigation, whether it's traffic and ETA, and police traps, and whatever. And they came and they showed us all that stack, and it's confusing, and maybe that's one of the reasons that most of my peers couldn't figure it out. So what we tried to break it up and look at one aspect, and it has to do with disruption. Think about what was so disruptive about that. So we're all familiar with GPS and reception of GPS from satellites, but then came these guys and said, well, let's not only receive GPS, but let's also transmit GPS at 1 second or 2 seconds intervals, and we could create a map out of that. And that was really the disruption, going back to my previous point about disruption.
If I could just add here, sure. I think this type of technology is really important for government to have its ear attuned to, because just in my department, we have an organization called Bureau of Transportation Statistics. And you would think you'd be able to walk into that office and you'd be able to say, okay, what's traffic like in Los Angeles right now? The reality is they can tell me what it was like 2 years ago, but you're telling me what it's like right now. And so I think that government's going to have to develop the agility, using a good word that was used before. We're going to have to develop the agility to use some of this information that is outside government, that's gleaned outside of government, that's just as good, if not better, than the information we generate.
I want to ask the last question for you, Mr. Secretary. There's plenty of entrepreneurs here in the crowd. if they want to approach the DOT, if they want to do something which they believe that it's within your goals, what they should do, how they should approach you, what kind of, what are the process to reach, the big guys at the DOT?
What I want our department to do is to enable innovations that enhance safety and mobility across the United States. And if you've got an idea that will help us do that, call us. We've got, my office is open for you, as well as the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. For those of you who are focused on vehicles, Dr. Mark Rosekind, our administrator, is very innovative. He comes out of Silicon Valley. He understands the need for us to get at this very quickly.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you so
Secretary.
much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.